This is 236th day of Ukraine's resistance. We're at Mediacentru Ukraine. My name is Vasil Samokhvalov. We're starting our conversation with Oleksandr Kharchenko, director at the Center for the Research of the Power Sector, Energy Sector. We'll be discussing the energy security in Ukraine and in the world. Hello, sir. Hello. The first question, Russians are attacking the energy, the grid, the critical energy infrastructure. This is understood. But the question is, what can Ukraine, in what way can Ukraine counteract this energy terrorism? Obviously, there are two key aspects. One has to do, trivial as it may sound, is to simply strengthen the air defense and anti-air defenses, and clearly this is a critical aspect right now. And on the other hand, there are a number of things like the first thing we use every day is the professional work ethic of our energy sector employees. This is an important aspect without which Ukraine would be in blackout by now. But we're working, we're renewing, reestablishing the networks, we're establishing reserve connections, we're sometimes switching, applying very non-standard solutions, but the consumer is usually has the power, the electricity. How can every Ukrainian help today? Realistically, the system is working in very non-standard regimes, and the load that would not be problematic in peacetime, that would be quite simple in peacetime and would not cause any trouble, are now sometimes problematic and difficult and create significant stress, especially when we have to both repair and provide and supply power to the consumer. Which is why we have this massive request, and we will keep repeating this. This is understood that during peak hours, peak consumption, this is from 5 to 8 p.m. and from about 5, 6 to 8 a.m. During these peak hours, please reduce your consumption wherever possible. Unplug whatever devices you're not using at the moment. Do your best to avoid turning on anything that consumes a lot of electricity, including the teapot, electric teapot, heated floors, the hair dryers, the washing machines, the iron, anything that consumes a lot of power in these hours. We urge you, please, in your everyday life, to please know it really does make a difference. It really matters, and it really does help the employees of the energy sector to support the system and help go through these hours without switching off of some part of the network, because otherwise we'll simply have to switch off the grid. There is a reserve of resilience, there is the knowledge, there is great support from international partners, including equipment, materials, and everyone's working to ensure that Ukraine retains its civilian power infrastructure, retains its in a functional state, rebuff these terrorist attacks. But we are really in a situation where it's down to each of us. How realistic is it now to build some kind of doubling lines, superfluous, or is it just survival at this point? In terms of generating power, we have more than enough. And even in conditions when the Zaporizhzhia power plant was seized and it provided a lot of our power, we still have a lot of generational capacity in spite of the attacks. We don't really have problems with generating electricity. The attacks they're very focused attack on the grid, on the transportation. They're completely focused on. It's quite clear that there are people who behind them who understand the power grid very well, understand how it works, how the power lines work, how the substations work. The attacks are very focused. So right now, this is about, yes, we are building workarounds, lines to try and get around these damaged segments. Build switches that help us go around damaged or destroyed objects. But all of this is still this isn't this isn't long-term sustainable decision. These are survival measures. Capital decisions, capital measures, renewal will be taken after the war. But what can be done now, the additional reserve, anything that can be added right now, um, uh, new equipment or put in reserve or gained from our European partners. Um, the quick installation of all this equipment, all of this is done. All this is being done. Nevertheless, attacks persist. They continue every day. So it's hard to call the situation. It's hard to say this is a simple situation. At the same time, it's not some kind of insoluble something that can't be solved. I'm sure we will resist and hold the system. The attack on the central office of Ukrenergo, what was the point? What was the logic? What was behind it? What was the idea? I will refrain from commenting the logic. The attack was aimed at certain important segments of what the Ukrenergo is doing. Ukrenergo is, of course, the national operator of the power grids connecting the country. This attack was anticipated. The good thing is that the central office of the Ukrenergo have quality protocols, security protocols in place. As a result, we have no one died, no one was hurt at the office, and the hits that were. I know that some people suffered in the nearby housing, but in Ukrenergo itself, everything worked as planned. There was no significant damage than that the Muscovites intended to inflict. Okay, can we talk about the Muscovites then, as you say? The Nord Stream. What are the prospects of the future? What are the future energy prospects of power of Russia? Will Russia continue to feed the world with its gas and oil? As far as Nord Stream is concerned, there's an investigation. Initial findings are that this was definitely a well-calculated terrorist attack. That, thank God, I mean, even the Russian propagandists aren't trying to ascribe it to Ukraine, thank God. I am convinced that this is the work of the people who were involved in the building of this gas pipe, and considering the precision and the efficiency of the strike, of the damage. And we have to understand that the pipes, Nord Stream pipes, are pipes that are meant to hold 150 atmosphere. It's not so easy to damage. They're not so easy to damage. Plus, they are in places where they're damaged. We're talking 80 to 100 meters under the sea. So even getting the right load of explosives there, the right charge, and we have reports of damage, several meters, 7-8 meters in length. This points clearly this was done by professionals. I think these professionals had the same sort of. I think these professionals came from Russia. Is there any point in renewing these pipes, and can they be rebuilt? That's an open question. Consumption of Russian gas in Europe is rapidly dropping to zero. Over the past month, it's dropped from the previous from 40% to less than 10%. Europe-wide, something like 8%, and it's continuing to drop. So, honestly, I don't think anybody will be investing into the rebuilding of the Nord Stream. I'm equally sure that this last thread of Nord Stream 2, last branch of Nord Stream 2 that Putin mentioned will work, will operate, and I'm sure that the European community understands what is behind this thread. So I see no options. I see no chance that this story will be renewed, at least in any foreseeable horizon that we can, in any horizon prediction that we have ahead of ourselves now. We are now anticipating the introduction of sanctions, of oil sanctions. We are expecting a ceiling, a price ceiling. There's very tense negotiations ongoing at the moment, but there are many hopeful signals. I want to believe that this new price cap of $70 on Russian oil will work. This will be a huge blow on the incomes of the Russian Federation. Again, this is over $110 billion in 2021 for the Russian budget. And this sum will drop at least threefold, possibly more. Now, as far as gas, Russia has isolated itself from the European gas market. Now we're hearing these fantastic offers to Turkey in terms of let's create a world gas hub in Turkey. Turkey is a country that has a very Turkey-oriented gas policy. They have completely diversified supply chains. Azerbaijan, Iran, Russia. They also have access to LNG. Also, Turkey has invested massive funds into their own extraction in the Black Sea shelf, and they're successful. They're already mining for gas on the shelf, and they're planning to expand. Mr. Erdogan sometimes repeats his phrase that he sees Turkey as the country that does not import gas for itself. So I'm sure that Turkey will play any games that have to do with gas for as long as they're useful to Turkey. And I'm sure Erdogan will smile at Putin and say that we'll build any gas hubs with your money. Does this project have any real chance for strategic success and forming a new platform for selling Russian gas? I'm sure that even if everything develops along the best possible scenario without any sanctions, this process would take a decade. In conditions that we have today, when Russia is under sanctions, when no civilized company of the world will cooperate with a project like this due to reputational risks and the risk of reputational sanctions and physical sanctions, I'm sure that no hub will materialize. Hypothetically, what is the likelihood of Russia finding new markets for its gas? Particularly, we're talking about the well, again, it depends on what. For oil, I'm sure Russia will continue to supply some chunk of oil. We have to understand that the extraction of oil is diminishing in Russia because of the exit of Western partners, because the entire oil-based greatness of Russia is based upon Western technology. Shell, Chevron, and other Western investors who have already left Russia. For instance, at the quite difficult mine in Sakhalin, after Exxon exited, the extraction of oil fell by a factor of 80 over the past next 2 weeks. So technologically, it's very hard for them to support the extraction. So Russia is the kind of country today where the extraction of oil will be dropping, and this will be the trend for the foreseeable future, probably for a long time. Will they find a consumer in the East? Probably, but that consumer will definitely not compensate for the lost market of European countries and America and everything that has to do with that. As far as gas is concerned, if we tried really hard, we couldn't achieve the kind of success that Russia has achieved in diminishing its gas part in Europe. Moving this infrastructure somewhere is very difficult. Turning somewhere else, I mean, there's one pipe that goes to China. Even in China, is not fully using it and aren't about to start because they understand that they don't want dependencies. This is a very clear situation, and there's no other infrastructure. Building new LNG terminals in a situation where they can't finish the ones that they've already started after their partners have left. And there's a lot of discussion in Russia, in the Russian oil and gas community, and there's the maybe not panic, but certainly some unease that we can't do this ourselves. Yeah, that's true. That's right. You can't do this on your own at all. So my predictions for Russia are pretty lamentable in terms of what they can supply to European and world markets after Europe is fully replacing Russian supply schemes. Russia will simply be sitting on that gas. Understood? Thank you very much. With us was Oleksandr Kharchenko, director of the Center for the Study of the Power Sector, discussing the energy security in Ukraine and all the world. We'll continue our work tomorrow.